All right, I hope you guys are doing well. We're going to move on today. I want to review with you quick with the Bellringer, just how we hear, how we sense, perceive hearing. And then I want to move on with some different theories on how we understand our sensation and perceive hearing. And I want to talk about the vestibular sense and kinesthetic sense. And that's about it for today. So, with that, again, your vocab is due Friday. I'm still thinking we might have a quiz Friday, at least on the anatomy of the ear and the eye and understanding how we perceive sound and vision. So just please be aware of that. Be ready for it. Again, I don't know if we'll get to that or not, but I'd like to say we would. Okay, so just in that case, be prepared for a quiz on the ear, anatomy of the ear, anatomy of the eye, how I perceive hearing, and and vision. Okay, so bell ringer for today. Describe how we perceive sound. Within your response, indicate parts of the ear and how they all work together for auditory processing. So I'll give you a couple seconds here. You pause the video, write down your response, and I'll review it with you here soon. Okay, here we go. So, as we know, we have an outer ear, which is what we visualize, what we see, okay, as our ear. My ear looks a little different. I don't know how that works with hearing. It just doesn't make sense. But anyway, so we have the outer ear, what we visualize. It acts like a tunnel, okay? It acts like a funnel in a way to funnel in that sound that we're perceiving, that we're about to hear. And that's going to send that information through our ear canal, right, which is getting towards our middle ear. And as that sound is traveling down our ear canal, we have first the eardrum. All right, the eardrum is just a membrane. It almost looks like a funnel in a way. And that funnel vibrates with the sound waves that are coming in. So as that sound waves, whatever frequency, whatever whatever wavelength that it might occur, especially frequency, whatever frequency that's coming in at, high pitch, low pitch, whatever it might be, that is going to vibrate our eardrum and to a precise vibration that is going to really vibrate and shake, which is connected to the three bones in the middle of the ear. Right? We have the hammer, we have the anvil, and we have the stirrup. Right, there's other names for it, but just to keep it basic right now, we're just going to call it the hammer, anvil, and stirrup. And as the eardrum's vibrating because of the sound waves coming through the ear canal, it is also moving the three bones in the middle ear. So the three bones in the middle ear are also going to vibrate and move, which is going to be connected to the cochlea, which we talked about yesterday. So the cochlea is going to move and vibrate, okay, and that is filled with fluid, so that fluid is going to move and it's going to interact with the basilar membrane, okay, which is almost like hair-like structures within your cochlea. So as the cochlea is vibrating, it is moving that liquid within your ear, and that fluid in the cochlea is going to interact with the basilar membrane, and that membrane is going to interact with, obviously, inside of it the hair fibers, okay, and those hair fibers are going to send a message, a neural impulse, okay, to the auditory nerve. That auditory nerve is going to send information to our temporal lobe where we can perceive sound, right? And that's how the workings of the anatomy of the ear kind of work together for us to perceive sound, which is very interesting. All that's happening at a fast and alarming rate. Okay, it's to the point where it's almost amazing how it occurs with vision and with hearing. Okay, we hear things right when it's happening. A thousandth of a second is hard to do, which we're going to talk about with the frequency theory. I mean, it's just something that, it just doesn't travel that quick. But it's, let's face it, it's almost instantaneous as what we know it and what we hear it as. Okay. All right. So there you go. There you have it. Just make sure you remember the anatomy of the ear. Okay. And I forgot to mention semicircular canals. Don't worry about it too much. Just know it's connected to the cochlea, which is filled with the fluid within your inner ear. Okay, and that allows us to help perceive sound. All right, so there you go. That's the bell ringer for today. So jot that down. It's gonna be due Friday. Okay, and today we'll go over the ear. Right, when you go over the ear, let me pull that up real quick. Okay, there it is. Your worksheet. All right, so Again, I guess I should have brought this up when I was going over it. I apologize. So we have the sound waves coming in, right? And then that's going to interact with the three bones of the middle ear. Okay, we have the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup, which is connected to the cochlea. Right, and these are the semicircular canals. Okay, the semicircular canal again connected to cochlea, which allows for the inner fluid, that fluid, the liquid in the inner ear, to interact with our basilar membrane to send that auditory message. Right, and then obviously we know this as the cochlea. Okay, the cochlea is almost looks like a snail shell in a way. It actually looks like a snail. Gary from SpongeBob. All right, and this is the auditory nerve. The auditory nerve is connected to the cochlea, well, more connected to the membrane within inside the cochlea that sends that information as an auditory message to our brain, to our temporal lobe. Okay, and then this is the oval window. The oval window is really just where that connection is towards our stirrup and our cochlea. Okay, and that's located in the inner ear. So if you look at it, we have the inner ear, right? The inner ear is where the cochlear auditory nerve is. Okay, the middle ear is kind of where that stirrup eardrum is located, and then the outer ear is obviously, what we see as our ear. And then here at the bottom, okay, we have the eardrum. Okay, the eardrum, as you can see here, it kind of gives it away, right? And then this here is a basilar membrane, and those are the hair cells that interact with the fluid, which sends that message, right, to the auditory nerve. All right, there you go. That's the activity from yesterday. So hopefully have that done, and I'll give you a grade for that ASAP. All right, real quick, let me go over the PowerPoint today. Pull this up. No, we don't want to talk about the prohibition today. So there it is. Okay. All right. All right, so yep, we just went over the ear, the anatomy of the ear, how that works with perception of sound, and it interacts with the temporal lobe, which we already talked about with the brain. All right, so place theory. This theory that links the pitch we hear with a place where the cochlear membrane is stimulated. All right, so place theory, this is an idea where our cochlea is vibrating at a point where we understand different types of pitch, whether it's high or low pitch, with a location in our cochlea. All right, so lower pitch would be located with the vibrations right as that sound is perceived, where the stirrup is connected to the cochlea. So almost in the beginning of the cochlea, that's where lower pitch is perceived, okay, and understood. And then the higher pitch sounds would be located closer towards the auditory nerve. So as these higher pitch sounds are occurring, that is going to be processed and interacted with the basilar membrane in the cochlea towards the auditory nerve. So if you stretch out the cochlea, which is obviously we know as looking like the snail shell, if we stretch that out, okay, the lower pitch sounds will be interacted right at the beginning of the cochlea where it's connected to the stirrup, okay, and then higher pitch sounds will be connected to closer towards the auditory nerves. And there's an issue with that. I mean, there's discrepancy with that because you know, with these pitches, with these sounds, it's almost to a point where we can't understand exactly how that's interacted with our basilar membrane. You know, if that's going to be really focused on, sending that information to our auditory nerve. It's like, how do they know? How do they base that information off of where that's located with their basilar membrane? Okay, and that's one of the issues with it. Yeah, so that's place theory. So frequency theory is the theory that a rate of nerve impulses traveling up the auditory nerve matches the frequency of a tone, thus enabling us to sense this pitch. So this is based off not the cochlea, I mean a little bit off the cochlea, the basilar membrane, but frequency theory is based more on our neural impulses, okay, how our perception of these neural impulses, it's almost really dependent on the sending of this information to our temporal lobe. So it's really on the auditory nerve, okay, and our perception of hearing these different types of frequencies and how that impulse is being sent, okay. And that frequency theory, I believe, gains more traction with understanding how we perceive different pitches, different sounds, okay, different, obviously, frequencies of sounds if it's higher pitch, lower pitch. It's based more off the neural impulses and how we perceive that sound. Obviously, everybody's a little bit different. I know for certain that mosquito ringtone, many older people can't hear that. And it has to do with kind of longevity of people that are older. They're kind of almost not delayed, but their hearing is not as acute as what a younger person might be. But another issue with that, the frequency theory, is that the rate of fire. So, like, let's say sound obviously travels at different speeds depending on what it is, and the frequency theory. If this was faster than 1,000th of a second, right, we won't be able to detect it. We won't be able to hear it, and that's one issue with the frequency theory. And again, a lot of people back that with that mosquito ringtone. The higher the pitch, with the person that's a little bit older, it's going to be harder for them to hear it because their neural impulses aren't firing near as much as what someone of younger age would. Okay. All right. So place theory, again, based on the cochlea. Okay, how that vibration of the cochlea is sensing and perceiving that sound. Frequency theory is more on neural impulses. All right, how we locate sound. I usually have a demonstration here in class. Someone is blindfolded in a class sitting up front, and you have to hear the sound. You have to tell whether or not you heard it from right, straight, okay, right behind you, to the left of you, wherever it might be, or maybe, let's say, to the left, right in front of you. And it just shows how we locate sounds and how sound waves actually work. Okay. All right, so here's a little test for you. I think this is funny. I mean, a lot of people always say this. Is if a tree falls, does it make a sound? And that's something that I like to kind of question people on. It's almost like, oh, does a bear poop in the woods, right? I think that's kind of funny. But with the tree sounds, does it make a sound if, let's say, the tree falls over? And the answer is actually no. The answer is no. So the only reason is because there's no one around to hear it. So let's say if there's no one around to hear the tree fall in the woods or right in the forest. Let's say we're all in school. Tree falls way out in the distance. The only way we would know it is obviously if we walk up to the forest and see it laying there. It's like, oh, that tree didn't, that must have fell, right? But does it make a sound? And the answer is no, because the reason is sound or auditory processing, right? So the sound is only a perception, right? So it is a sensation, and it's not actually something that, if we're not there present to hear it, if we're not present there to actually witness it, obviously, or hear the sound happening, then no, it doesn't make a sound. So sound is only a perception that our brain understands, right? So I think that's kind of interesting, so to think about. All right, so deafness. All right, there are two different types of deafness. Conduction deafness. So this is an inability to hear resulting from damage to structures in the middle of the ear. So this might be something that, obviously over time, if you're in a car accident, if you maybe, a lot of fighters especially, receive this because of blows to the ear. If you received any types of damage to the inner ear, that's kind of how you receive conduction deafness. Okay, that's only if you're injured some way or somehow. If there's an inability, like let's say with the bones in the middle ear, somehow break, or your eardrum is bursted. That's kind of the only way conduction deafness occurs with people. Then nerve deafness is sensory neural deafness. It's inability to hear linked to a deficit in the body's ability to transmit impulses from the cochlea to the brain. So the cochlea, for some reason, let's say there's a lack of fluid. Let's say there's a lack of, different types of basilar membrane or the hair fibers, hair cells to communicate that information and send it to the auditory nerve to the brain. There's a thing now that will help people out. It's called a cochlear implant. So this is a device that is connected to the cochlea, which is interesting. It's right here on the side of the head. I'll maybe show a video for it attached to this lesson. That explains that a little bit more. So people that are born deaf that have this inability because let's just say there's a they're missing something, it's just something that they're born with, right? They can't help it because there's no impulses being sent to the temporal lobe. A cochlear implant is almost acting as a, I wouldn't say replacement, but helping the ability of your cochlea to send that information to your auditory nerve, which is very groundbreaking, right? It's amazing how that works. And for many people that live like their whole life, maybe even at a young age, they can't hear, they're deaf. And then when they receive this cochlear implant, okay, for many people, it's a huge shock because they could never hear anything, right? They couldn't hear their mother's voice. They couldn't hear anybody talking to them, their friends, whatever it might be. And all of a sudden, they hear them for the first time, and their brain's trying to understand how they would maybe sound or how they would interact with things or a sound of their favorite item that they play with. And then all of a sudden, they hear the sound for the first time, and their brain is finally processing what that sound is. It's like, oh my gosh, this is a huge shock. And who knows? Maybe it sounds totally different from what we hear. We wouldn't know, right? All right, so position and movement, vestibular sense, okay. Last thing I want to go over. So this sense of body orientation, respect to gravity. So with our sense of balance. So not only with the cerebellum, which we talked about and discussed, but there's a vestibular sense as well. So this is like liquid within the cochlea, right? And this is something that interacts with the basilar membrane, the hairs in the semicircular canal in the inner ear. So this actually helps balance us from walking, sitting, dog, so we just don't fall right over. And for many boxers and fighters, this is interesting, and football players. So let's say they take a huge blow to the head. If you see them become dizzy right away, you see them kind of falling over, falling to the side. This might be an interaction with a vestibular sense, that something happened within their vestibular, their semicircular canal or their cochlea, which caused an issue with them to stay balanced and stay upright. I think that's pretty interesting to think about. I know, for example, there's a fight back, heck, that's 11 years ago now, 10 years ago now. Um, that's what happened to one of the MMA fighters. They're fighting. He took a blow to the head. I think it was a knee. And all of a sudden, he just couldn't even stand. He was swinging left and right, and falling over and falling into the cage. And no one could really understand because he was a very, very strong, great fighter. And it just goes to show that once that sense is gone, you can't keep up. You can't keep straight. And it's to the point where you're just falling about aimlessly. That's vestibular sense. Okay. Kinesthetic sense. Okay, this provides constant sensory feedback from muscles in your body and of what you're doing. So again, we don't really have to think about when we're walking. Okay, when we're grabbing things or when we're trying to, type, whatever it might be. I mean, yeah, the first time we do it, we had to think about it a little bit, but we don't really remember it when we're children, when we're kids, obviously, babies, whatever it might be. But after some time, we don't think about it. We just do it. Okay, that's what a kinesthetic sense is. And reactions, okay? So reactions to things. I know when the doctor comes up and hits right below the knee comes up, I can't help it. It just happens. It's just a reaction, a reflex to what, a reflex to what happens. And that's what kinesthetic sense is. And they're located in the joints, muscles, tendons. All right, that's all I got for today. Hope you guys are doing well, and I'll attach a video of the cochlear implant. I think that's pretty interesting. I think you'll enjoy it. All right, see you guys. Have a good one.